A promotion, they called it. I leapt at the chance. As an arbiter of a long and distinguished career, I can tell you one thing. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I leapt at the chance for a change. The thing with this job is that it so often involves wiping mutant off your boots. I despise them. The regular journeys into the underhive to cull them, my old gaffer used to say. The hive is like a house, my lad, and the underhive is the sewer. If you don't flush it out regularly, the feces start to run in the streets. But I won't miss it. I never took pleasure in the pyres we made of their burnt bodies, the culls. In my mind, the most disgusting thing about mutants is their need to try to gain mercy by sounding like us. I know it's all mimicry. Like an animal that seems to call your name in the dark, only to pounce on you when you wander away from the campsite. They insist on trying to sound like humans when they are screaming, when they are wailing for pity and clemency. But it's all an act, and I won't miss it at all. Well, what a fool. They handed me a midden sandwich, all right. Transferred to internal affairs for exemplary service and conduct. But it was a setup. It reminds me of the joke you only hear in this department. How do you kill 99 officials with one club and without breaking a sweat? Push 100 of them into a room, hand them the single club, and inform them one of them is Alpha Legion, and they cannot come out until they find out who. It's not funny. It was never funny. It's a living hell. When the first one turned up with that nasty little tattoo, their three-headed snake or hydra, whatever they call it, it was just the beginning. We find them everywhere now. At the sites of explosions, at the scene of executions. They never run. They just stand there with their hands on their heads and a glazed expression, with just a hint of a crooked smirk on their faces. Like they know they are going to be tortured to death, but have somehow won. I hate it, and I hate them. But there is one thing I hate more than anything else. It is filling in the damn charts. There's a chart, a sheet for bloody everything in this role. Everything. So I fill in yet another chart, another form, another waste of my time. The last words chart. Why do we even bother? None of them make any sense. Before they are executed, a strange and arcane ritual is enacted. The executioner will ask them if they have any last words. Gibberish is what then occurs. They say practically the same phrase each time, with only one difference. It starts, "I am Alfarius," whoever that is. And then they end with, "The Hydra awakes." But there is always a word, just one, that is snuggled between the two statements. Rubbish. So it goes like this. "I am Alfarius. You, the Hydra awakes." So I have to put all of these last words into the cogitator. I should be out hunting them, trying to predict their pattern. But no, I am doing this admin work. I fill in entry after entry, line after identical line, one by one on this huge sheet. It takes hours. But then, something happens. I start to notice a pattern. At last. Something to go on. Their Achilles heel, maybe. When put in order of execution, it makes no sense at all. But when you rearrange into date of arrest, it becomes clear. I ignore the prologue and epilogue entries of "I am Alfarius" and "the Hydra awakes," and a sentence begins to form from all of those random words. I enter the last details. Then it becomes clear. You are asleep. But you must do as instructed. Destroy the Arbiter's main center. the Hydra awakes. A pain appears behind my eyes for a second, then clears as swiftly as it arrived. I look at my reflection in the cogitator screen. I know what I must do. I press the delete button, wiping the records permanently. I stand and leave my office. I lock the door. I walk with a spring in my step down the many flights of stairs to the power station at the base of the building. I walk inside and nod to the tech priest there, before I pass his bemused glare and stare at the power core. I draw my pistol quietly and then turn and execute the priest. A single shot to the head. I then walk to the controls. I begin the process of overloading it. I had no idea I was so gifted with this sort of thing. I stand back and admire my handiworks as I hear the plant begin to shudder, slowly rising to the moment it will explode and envelop this entire block in radioactive fire. I walk to another panel and tap in my last words. Strange. I'm elated at their writing. I feel such a sense of calm and achievement. I send a single message to the spaceport officials. I am Alfarius. You, the Hydra awakes. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, and I wish to introduce you to the factions and forces of the Warhammer 40k universe. Today, we will be attempting to understand possibly one of the most complicated and inscrutable factions in the entire grim darkness of the future. For today, we will attempt to wrestle with the very basics of the Alpha Legion. I must state straight off the bat that this is possibly one of the most difficult subjects I have ever had to present, and so I am insistent that this should be a brief introduction, as these matters have been dealt with on the channel previously, as I must be honest and state that my opinion, perspective, my approach to this faction have altered so many times that I am unable to be certain of anything being correct. All we can do is try to discern the very basics, and then to move on to the many nuances of this faction at another time. Hopefully, by that time, I will have a more solid and static position on them. But that is the wonder of Warhammer. The juice that fills the glass. The thing that keeps fans coming back time and time again. Its complexity, its depth. And I will apologize now, for many a gentle listener may not like this unorthodox entry as it goes on, as it will be so eclectic. But just know that this is by design. So let us move on to the basics, and see where the trail takes us. But just know that I honestly do not have an absolute view of where the destination actually is. The Alpha Legion are a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. None can truly know their motivations. None can guess their insidious motives. But that is the key word here, insidious. Insidious, meaning proceeding in a gradual, subtle way, with very harmful effects. They represent a darkness that few truly grasp. Even I am not sure I am capable of doing so with the details we have at hand, gentle listener. But there is one truth about them. Everything is a lie, and everything is true. For the greatest lies always have the kernel of truth at their center, and when it comes to lying, the Alpha Legion are second to none. But let us start with what is actually known. The Primarchs of the Alpha Legion, those demigods who were forged by the Emperor of Mankind to lead his armies across the galaxy in the Great Crusade, were all made, designed, birthed for a reason. Each had their strength that none other possessed. In many it was blatant, and their primary attribute was not only their defining one, but it was their entire goal, their modus operandi, their raison d'etre, their very purpose. Like a pantheon of gods, the Primarchs would display their powers for all to see, and their legions, the Astartes, or Space Marines, that made up their legions were all taken from their template. For example, Leman Russ is quite easily comparable with the god Thor, a bluff braggart, but an honourable soul, and warrior without peer, who always would stand against tyranny and evil where it threatened the halls of his people. Such are his legion, the Space Wolves, loud and aggressive, feral and fierce, but they are also unflinching in their loyalty to the Emperor and his imperium. If the Primarchs are indeed a pantheon, then the Alpha Legion were led by Loki, the Norse trickster god, always plotting, planning, always active. Some say that Loki was an evil Satan-type figure, but, in my humble opinion, he was not. He was a cautionary tale. The similarities are endless. In many retellings of the fables of the gods, the Aesir, Loki was a young god and hot to impress and to insist. He was also active and always fought the enemies of the gods with his most pronounced attributes. His mind, his cunning. He would outthink, not outfight his opponents, and save the realm eternal on many an occasion. But he was not the brute strength of Thor, nor the noble endurance of Balder, nor the indefatigable force of justice of Tyr. Hence, no matter the result of his activity, he was always sneered at and derided by the more brutish gods, as they always concentrated on slighting his methods, never seeing their results. Few were the times that Loki was ever given his due. And so it is with the Primarchs of the Alpha Legion. Yes, you heard me right. Primarchs. Plural. For of all of the sons of the Emperor, only the Alpha Legion had twins at their helm. It was said that they were the one soul in two bodies. They were called Alpharius and Omegon. They were one. Where Alpharius was the name most new, as this was the persona that had been designed or designated as the public face of the Legion. It could never be discerned if one spoke to Alpharius or to Omegon. Never. The myths about Alpharius Omegon are so many that it is impossible for me, at this point, to actually be clear. Some say he was captured by the Slaughed, abused, broken, and then found by the Emperor, who then tried to put him back together. Some say he was found at the head of an interstellar empire that was a thorn in the side of the War Master, Horus Lupercal, himself, and that one of them boarded his vessel as an assassin to decapitate him and end the Crusades' onward rush into the empire that Alpharius and Omegon believed was their own. Some say that he was always on Earth, and that the Emperor, for his own reasons, kept these sons hidden and trained them personally for many years, even before the discovery of Horus Lupercal, officially the first Primarch to be reunited with the Emperor and his crusade. Some say that he is actually the unseen hand of the Emperor and plays a game on his behalf, though none of his siblings would or could perform or allow. But this is all propaganda, possibly with a gem of truth hidden in each of the lies, but they are, if taken as a totality, lies, dissembling, propagated, and spread by the Lords of Confusion, the Primarchs of the Alpha Legion. For to know the genesis of a thing often means understanding it, something that they never wanted any to be able to do. Understand them. For the Alpha Legion are the experts in espionage that put even the Raven Guard to shame. Where other legions would display their prowess on the battlefield, the Alpha Legion fought entirely differently. No slouches on the battlefield either, but it was not their purlieu. Here, in the pantheon of the gods were the Primarchs. It was Alpharius' tactics and his methods that were also derided and slurred, no matter the results, as with my analogy of Loki. His clashes with many notables are well documented. I can still not make a clear picture of it. I know that many come to this site for a slightly off-the-wall perspective that may deviate from the standard relaying by more competent and experienced lore peddlers, but in this regard, I must admit, they have me foxed. But the tale of Loki I find appropriate, at the time of the writing of this tract at least, as it was the constant derision of his methods, never giving him his due, that led to Loki taking the path of evil and antagonism to his fellow gods. Basically, if you are lied about endlessly, you start to wear the mantle provided you. Thus does it also appear to be with Alpharius and Omegon. Let us be direct. Even Conrad Kurz, the Primarch of the Night Lords, the purveyors of terror themselves, even he called out the tactics of the Alpha Legion. Even the Night Haunter stated that there was something twisted about this legion and its two young Primarchs. I will not even brook now the reaction he gained from Rogel or from Reboot, who practically bayed for his blood at many a point in the Great Crusade, but ever did the Odin of the Pantheon, the Emperor, ignore and suppress their contentions. Alpharius, Omegon, and their legion were left to their own devices more and more as time went by. And perhaps this is why they trod the path that they did, that they were found last, that they were literally decades behind their siblings in time to accrue glory and accomplishments may have been a huge impact. For it is said that they initially went out of their way to try to move faster and more effectively than any other legion in an attempt to make up for the lost time. But it was not to be. Their efforts, no matter the results, were always derided. At this point, it would be utterly logical for any person, especially a sibling deemed to be the junior, to simply up sticks and refuse to play by the rules that were so heavily stacked against them. In many a recounting, the twins spent blessed little time with the Emperor, their father. Perhaps he had seen them as the completion of his armies and took them for granted. Perhaps he was simply bored of the lines and training he would have to give any Primarch when he had done so 19 times before. It is said in some tales that he formed a better bond with his oldest sibling, the first found, Horus Lupercal, the War Master. It is seen that this lack of time with the Emperor, why they were viewed as so easily turned to the side of Horus when he fell to darkness and then rebelled and set in motion the conflagration of the Horus heresy. But they did not really spend that much time with Horus either, so there are holes in this argument. Also, there are details that are known only to them. On a solitary world in their path, one of the twins, it is said to be Alfarius, was secretly met by a representative of a group of Xenos, aliens, calling themselves the Cabal. In this meeting, a perpetual called John Grammaticus acted on the behalf of the Cabal as mediator and attempted conversion of the Primarch. Grammaticus stated the Cabal were ancient and powerful and had been working against chaos for millennia. Of course, on the understanding, gentle listener, that at the point of the meeting, there was no general knowledge of the forces of chaos or their dark gods. Not even the Primarchs knew about them. The Emperor kept this from them all, for reasons we may never know. Grammaticus went on to tell Alfarius that the Cabal had scryed only two possible outcomes to the mighty events that were about to unfold. He was informed that Horus would fall to chaos, and then he would openly rebel against his father, the Emperor. The two possible future pathways were these. 1. If the Emperor was victorious, then it would break the back of the Imperium and everything it presently professed to represent. The forces of chaos would grow over time and eventually consume the galaxy. Humanity would be its food for all eternity, and all would be brought down with them. And then 2. If the Emperor were defeated, then Horus would rule the galaxy, but his regret, his conscience would slowly resurface, and that he would end in despising himself and the Lords of Chaos. He would then engage in wars that would end in wiping out humanity. But that would result in the Chaos Gods being defeated, and the galaxy would then go into a golden age and return to what it was always supposed to have been, before it was twisted. Alfarius Omegon were then asked to make a choice: to assist the Emperor and end the universe in chaos, or to join Horus, with the goal of sacrificing the human race to defeat the Chaos Gods for all time. Not much of a choice, one might think. It is this event that has been used to attempt to define the Alpha Legion. For they did go over to Horus, and during the Battle of Istvan V, they turned the colour of their cloth and assisted in the slaughter of a full 3 legions of loyalists. Almost to a man, almost. Surely this points to them taking the path provided by the Cabal. But is it so? Because for this reason Alfarius drew Rogel Dawn into a confrontation that ended in his own death. Rogel slew him. Or did he? Was that actually Alfarius or Omegon? Or simply an incredibly well-trained and performing legionary who had they groomed to be the sacrifice that all believed? Impossible to tell. Alfarius and Omegon are said in some tales to be the smallest of the Primarchs and actually able to move amongst their men with total anonymity. Other reports state that they were towering warriors of golden skin and unsurpassed martial ability. Which are right. Everything is true, and everything is a lie. For there are so many details about them, and yet so few. They claim to serve Chaos Undivided, but not show signs of mutation and the blessings from the Dark Gods. They did not retreat into the Eye of Terror as their brothers did when Horus lost at the Battle of Terror, and the traitor legions were then chased to the Eye by the remaining loyalist legions and their Primarchs. The Alpha Legion simply disappeared, and they have been in hiding ever since. Hiding amongst the normal citizenry of the Imperium, even among the forces of the Space Marines. They are considered to be everywhere and nowhere, all at the same time. Yet they still seem to strike for the forces of chaos. Yet they have been recorded to have performed atrocities that would make a World Eater or a Night Lord balk. But in the rare times they reveal themselves for open combat, they have been heard to scream old war cries like, "For the Emperor." Is this sarcasm, or is it truth? Are they following chaos, or tricking them too? Are they the deepest cover operatives that ever existed in the history of the galaxy, wearing a mask of obedience to the Chaos Guards for over 10,000 years, whilst always remaining loyal in their hearts? The sabotage and deep cover operatives are one of the greatest threats to the Imperium. I know I say that a lot, but each time it's true. That's why it's called the Grimdark. The Hydra, the many-headed beast, the tick in the ear, the whisper in the back of the mind, is their greatest weapon: distrust. For most believe that the Imperium is rife with distrust and paranoia, but this is clearly not the case, no matter what people may feel. The reality is that the Navy is expected to carry the forces of the Imperium to its destinations and protect from raiders and pirates. All worlds are expected to pay their tithes. All chapters of Astartes are expected to respond to the klaxon calls for assistance. The Ministorum are expected to exalt the Emperor, and its people are expected to toil for the Imperium's very survival. But when these expectations are not met, anarchy occurs. An anarchy that is always abused and used by the Alpha Legion to then perform whatever tasks, secure whatever objectives or resources they require to further their insidious machinations. And, as per the joke we heard earlier, they are now at a stage that their name alone, the one planted operative designed to be found, can then tear apart these conventions of cooperation, as entire swathes of the Imperial bureaucracy and military then attempt to find these snakes in the grass by purging what may not even be there, but purging nonetheless. They were ever a strange and undeniably powerful legion. Their cohesion and organization, loyalty and unquestioning ability to work together to a single goal on the battlefield was unmatched. Even the Grand Organizer and his Ultramarines were not the equal in their ability to organize a strike of 1,000,000 elements. Their discipline is also a thing to be marveled at. Truly marveled. Why? Any other Astartes will give their life for their lords without a second thought. But will they give up themselves? Doubtable. But what do I mean? The Alpha Legion are so disciplined, so cunning, so dauntless in their devotion to their cause, that they regularly and frequently have their minds, their very personalities, and everything that makes a person who they are, wiped. This allows them to be true deep cover operatives, as there is simply not the information in their minds and souls to be divulged. But imagine the commitment to cause, to willingly have this performed, to effectively be ended again and again and again, and know that no matter how successful or how impressive your deeds, you will not remember a single one of them at the end of the course of your life. Now that is a level of conviction that should make others quake. When one of them is captured and states very simply, "I am Alfarius," it may not actually be a ruse to them. They may actually believe that. The perfect traitor is the one who does not know they are a traitor in their heart, as is oft said. It is these sleeper units that can be everywhere or nowhere. But it also means something else, something strange. It means that there is actually no certainty at all. The legionaries of the Alpha are actually working for the same goal that they started with all of those years ago. How would it be possible for them to even tell? Any Marine, any official, any officer, any man, woman or child that is encountered in the grim darkness of the future could be a sleeper unit of the Alpha Legion and never even know it until they are activated. And even then, they may not know it themselves. despite carrying out the nefarious actions of these busy bees. For that is one thing above all that must be acknowledged by all fans of this glorious setting. The Alpha Legion are the hardest workers in the entirety of the human race, for they are never at rest, never still, always plotting and scheming towards an end even they may not fully know themselves, but always busy little bees. The World Eaters may exemplify worshippers of the blood god Khorne. The Emperor's children may do so for the Prince of Pleasure Slaanesh. The Death Guard are ardent in their love of the Grandfather Nurgle, and the Thousand Sons show unflinching devotion to the Lord of Change Tzeentch. The Iron Warriors may hate chaos while still serving it. The Black Legion may profess independence while fighting for it. The Night Lords may sow misery in its name, and the Word Bearers believe they are its greatest servants. But it is the Alpha Legion who are chaos. If actions speak louder than words, then they are merely a louder form of communication. But who are the Alpha Legion talking to? Because, in my mind, as things stand right now, the three-headed snake, the Hydra, may well represent the truth of the matter. Some have said that this represents that there were actually triplets, not twins, but I do not see this. They are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. With the Lion, L. Johnson was the template, the start of the journey. Alpharius and Omegon are its conclusion, its end. Does the three-headed Hydra symbol reveal something nobody even wishes to consider? The existence of a third path, which the Alpha Legion tread alone. One path is loyalty to the throne and the Emperor of mankind. One path is the way of chaos and serving the dark gods. Perhaps, just perhaps, they serve neither. But what does this mean? What do they want? Godhood for themselves? The destruction of the universe? Or maybe something else? Only time will tell. But when they do achieve their goals, with Alpharius or Omegon, or both or neither, at the wheel, would anyone even know? Gentle listener, I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. If you are confused at this point, then please do forgive me. It was by design. I have tried to reflect how dealing with the Alpha Legion is to their adversaries, for anyone dealing with them is always confused. If you see them, it is because they want you to see them. If you stumble upon them, it is what they wished. But herein lies the rub. They are not infallible, and it is this fear of being taken into a trap, or the fear of revealing one, that is actually their best power, their strongest trait. For fighting the Alpha Legion saps all of their most vital flame: confidence, certainty. Their propaganda is their greatest weapon, and it is wielded like a cudgel, but also like a scalpel. When one confronts the Alpha Legion, one simply does not know, as I do not know, as you do not know. One day I will make more entries for this magnificent faction that brings so much to the setting. Out of mercy, I will be more clear as we discuss their organization, tactics, known history more clearly, and their recent actions. I look forward to this happening, but do know that it will be some time. I was not applying hyperbole when I stated that my opinion of them shifts by the hour, as it really does. So, gentle listener, welcome to Warhammer. I sincerely hope you can roll with some of its elements and lean into the confusion. For sometimes not knowing for certain is actually more fun than being able to witness the entire canvas. It allows the imagination to soar. If you have enjoyed this brief introduction to the Alpha Legion, then please do consider liking and subscribing. And, if you have the desire, hitting the comments section to witness the furore that will be therein contained, and share your own perceptions of the Alpha Legion. I can assure you, it's going to be varied and fun. But always remember the image of the fireside, brothers and sisters. We spend time together for the fun of it. So be joyous, and above all, be kind. If you are a regular gentle listener and see the worth in what we are doing, then please do consider supporting us on Patreon. or making a one-off contribution to the channel. I cannot even describe the amount of coffee I get through to do my little tap dances, rough and ready though they may be. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun.